All right, good evening. It's February 17th, just after midnight 2021. Raptors 124-113 winners over the Milwaukee Bucks. Bad news in this one. Kyle Lowry went down with what looked like an ankle injury towards the end of the first half. Looks like he kind of landed a little awkward on it. But Raptors, they finished strong. Fred VanVleet had, one of his best performances of the season, not including his career high game where he went off and dropped 50, whatever that was. But 33, 4 and 7 today for him. Giannis, obviously, as usual, filling the stat sheet with 34, 10 and 8, but just wasn't enough. Pascal Siakam, his numbers were there, 23 and 13. Defensively, he was pretty good, but shot 8 for 23, by far taking the most shots on the team. Fred, shot above 50%. Kyle, I talked with Zane about this. He's been the team's MVP for sure this season. Now, Norm's really stepped it up recently, had another strong game, and OG came back after missing 10 games. It's been 10 games. I had no idea it's been that long. Time is flying. I guess because these guys are playing pretty much every other day anyways. But he looked really good, and he had this play that I posted where he spun a few times. It looked like he didn't know where he was, obviously he did. Just something we haven't seen from OG, finish with the reverse after someone grabbed his, I believe it was his left arm, and he kind of threw it up. Looked really good out there today, and obviously with Pascal at the 4 and Pascal at the 5 and OG at the 4, they're, I guess, technically like a small team, but they look really good. And even defensively, there was a lot of possessions today where the rotations just looked really good. Guys running all over the court, challenging every shot, running the Bucks off the line. As you guys know, Bucks, one of the, I guess, most prolific three-point shooting teams. They take a lot of shots from three, especially with Giannis. Why not? Because he's going to get into the lane everybody else is. They've kind of built this culture where everybody else is going to take threes. Now, Drew Holiday was out, obviously their second best player. Middleton had another strong game, but Raptors took advantage, and they almost beat the Bucks in the first matchup. Managed to get another win against them today. Now, they're going to have another game against them, I believe it's tomorrow. No, one day off. They'll play them again on Thursday. But Raptors, when we looked at the schedule, I thought that this is going to be a tough stretch for them. But with their defense and OG coming back, they're looking like a better team. Now, of course, one guy comes in, another guy goes out with Kyle. Hopefully he doesn't miss too much time, but wasn't a good look when he was kind of limping off the court. So that's, I guess, where I'm going to leave it off with the Raptors. They look good. They're going to make the playoffs. I know I thought that they might not, based on how they started the season. If Bates had a good game, I was going to say if they're playing Bates a little bit more, it might be a bit of a problem. But they're getting a little bit of production out of him. Just don't want to play their bigs too many minutes because they don't lack at that position. But a few things I want to talk about. So Anthony Davis is going to miss 2 or 3 weeks with a calf strain. Now, it was originally ruled as an Achilles injury. I guess a sprain or whatever they want to call it. Now these are linked, and what we saw with Kevin Durant last time, like I don't, want to jinx this or anything, but this is something where if it wasn't, basketball season, if this was the off season, he'd shut it down for a while. Now the Lakers don't necessarily have that option. 2 or 3 weeks, that's going to be, let's say that's 21 days. There's probably going to be 14 or 15 games in there. Now the Lakers are obviously going to make the playoffs, and without him, I won't say they had trouble with the T-Wolves today, but only won by, I believe it was 8 points against a T-Wolves team that was missing D'Angelo Russell as well, who's on the shelf for 4 to 6 weeks. Which, now that I think about it, there's been a lot of injuries this season, and that for sure has to be linked to the heavy workload that these guys are playing. Now we know that they're not practicing too much, but there are a lot of games, like a lot of back-to-backs, a lot of every other game, pretty much every other game these guys are playing, every other day, these guys are playing. And the game itself has changed in terms of intensity. When, I was a kid watching basketball, guys like Allen Iverson would play 40 minutes a game. A lot of guys would play 40 minutes a game. And these days with the speed of the game, not necessarily the physicality, but just the pace that the game is played at, it's very taxing on these guys. And we're seeing a lot of injuries. I think that this is clear evidence that you need to play your bench. You're not relying on guys to play 38, 40 minutes anymore because it's just too heavy of a workload. But getting back to Anthony Davis, the Lakers clearly are not going to win a title without him. As great as LeBron is, I don't see them doing much if Anthony Davis is going to miss a lot of time, because he's really the linchpin to their defense. Now, we're going to get to Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond, two ex-teammates, two guys that have been sat out recently. So first I'll talk about Blake. Blake's been one of my guys since he came into the league. Been injury prone the whole time, sat out his rookie season with a busted kneecap, broken kneecap. And ever since then has been pretty elite, especially with the Clippers. Now we signed that massive deal, got escorted almost, sent to Detroit. He wasn't happy about that, and he's really never been the same since he went there. He had one season 2 years ago where I believe he finished 5th or 6th in MVP voting. He really bounced back. Looked like he had rediscovered his game, extended his shooting range. But since then, especially this season, he was coming off another surgery and just doesn't move the same. He looks broken when he's walking around. It's really sad to see. His career's not over, but at this point, he's definitely a role player. Detroit want to move out from him, and they're not really going to be playing him much at all, actually. They've told him that he will not play until they find a trading partner, which we're going to get back to in a moment as well. But that's pretty much it for Blake. I was talking with a few friends about suitors. I don't see Blake going to a team that's not a contender. Most of these veteran guys, I believe Blake has to be probably 32 by now. You would think he's a little bit older. He's been in the league forever, but most of these guys come in when they're 19 years old after the one and dones. But although he's only like 31, 32 years old, he obviously has a lot of wear and tear. He was unhappy to go to Detroit due to the weather as well, living in California. I know that he has some kids in that area. So to be honest, if I had to pick a team, if he gets bought out, I don't think people are really going to offer much in terms of trade, because I know he has 1 year left on his deal, but what's his value making $30+ million this year and next? They have to get another bad contract to come in for Detroit, and I just don't see that coming. I think a more likely thing with him and Drummond, both of them are probably buyouts just due to the fact that they're both making about $30-35 million a year. For Blake, the Clippers we kind of talked about, me and a few friends, because just the familiarity, but I don't think, just based on how things ended, that he can go back to the Clippers. I don't think he would want to. I think something more likely, something like Montrezl Harrell did, is going to the rival in the Lakers. The Lakers and Golden State, to be honest, are probably the two front runners. The other team that I'm thinking that might work with would have to be Miami. Maybe they work on a trade, I'm not really sure, but all three of those teams, obviously California and Florida, warm weather places for Blake, already have a foundation there where he doesn't have to be the focal piece, and can kind of just sit in the back and maybe chip in with 12 points, something like that. I think that's really what he's going to be best at this point in his career. Maybe coming off the bench, going against some bench units, not having to be the focal point of an offense, and maybe use his point forward skills, because in his prime, Blake was a guy that would average about 5 assists a game and had great court vision, and that's one thing that's really not going to go away, even as his athleticism diminishes. That being said, I want to move on to Drummond. So a lot of Raptors fans really want him because they've seen the production or lack thereof production from the center position, whether it be Baines, Alex Len, who was waived, Boucher, who's more of a 4 but has played the 5 at times. But I just don't see the fit there. I don't see the Raptors absorbing $30 million in salary, matching salaries to go out. The Raptors just don't have anybody making that kind of money they would want to ship. There's been talk that Kyle might be traded. To be honest, with the team playing this well, I don't see them moving him because it just doesn't make any sense. You're really looking at your fans in the eyes and saying, we don't have any faith in this team if you're going to trade Kyle. At least if Kyle leaves, he leaves on his own terms, and that's something that Masai and Bobby Webster and the franchise wouldn't have to deal with. Possibly getting some hate in the media by the American media saying, oh, you let one of your guys go, you traded him, you gave up on him. The Raptors rewarded him with another 1 year, $30+ million deal that he's making this season. He's been a crucial player for them for sure, but as a guy that's, I believe, 34 and had a lot of miles on him, a lot of playoff miles too, I don't know what his market's going to be. Obviously, a lot of teams will want him. I just don't know what you're going to be willing to pay him going forward, because with guards, especially if you're not really a quick guard, which in this case might help Kyle a lot. He can shoot the ball. But I just don't know, at what point does the body break down and then you're stuck with a contract like we're seeing with Blake Griffin and X amount of guys around the league, where the time ticks on you, and all of a sudden you're there with a terrible contract. With Drummond, like I said, I just don't know. Like, if he came to the Raptors, what's your motive? If you're the team, is he going to get you out of round one? And to be honest, now, unless you're playing the Bucks, I think that maybe they have a decent chance against the Bucks. But anybody else, Boston, I don't. As much as Boston's really struggling right now, they're not going to beat Boston in the series. Miami, even though Miami's probably behind them in the standings, not going to beat them. The Nets, the Nets. None of these teams, to be honest, I'm going to go through the standing, just go through it. But Philly, that's a no for me. Milwaukee, like I said, yes. The Pacers, a tough matchup. The Raptors split it with them, should have lost both. Knicks are ahead of them right now. Then behind them, Charlotte, Bulls, Miami. Why not? I guess. But I just, like I said, I don't see big picture how this is going to work over the team, just in terms of risk and reward and what you have to give up in a deal to get Drummond. It just doesn't make too much sense to me. I would kind of look at the buyout market at this point. I've talked about Ed Davis before. He's a guy that's been in Toronto, a guy that you can get for cheap. Maybe even Kim Birch, that's on Orlando, a big defensive center. Guys that can just, you're not asking too much for them. You're just saying go in there, protect the rim, protect the paint, and give me some chip shots at the Raptors. Bigs have not been able to do. So that's what I would do if I were the GM. I wouldn't really want to trade any kind of assets. I've heard Malachi Flynn's name come up, and that's a big no for me. I know that he hasn't got off to the start that maybe some people had expected after his G League, after he went off in the preseason start. But this is a guy that I think has a chance to blossom into a Fred VanVleet type of player. And I wouldn't want to give up on him for 2 months of Drummond and a possible playoff run. That being said, I want to move on lastly to what Andre Drummond kind of sounded off, I believe it was last night. I'll read the quote and then I'll kind of get into how I feel about that. So his quote is, "I'd like to talk about something that's really bothering me, and it's the treatment of players in the league. To watch Andre Drummond before the game sit on the sidelines, then go back and come out in street clothes because a team's going to trade him, it's bullshit." Green continued, "Because when James Harden asked for a trade and essentially dogged it, no one's going to fight back that James was dogging his last days in Houston. We're not. But he was castrated for wanting to go to a different team. Everybody destroyed that man, and yet a team can come in and say, oh, we want to trade that guy, and then that guy has to go sit, and if he doesn't stay professional, he's a cancer, and he's not good in someone's locker room. That's the issue." I don't know where to begin with this. If he's pointing out with James Harden, me and Igor, me and myself have talked about this on the show. James Harden, for the bullshit that he pulled off in Houston, is not going to fly with me. He didn't handle that professionally whatsoever. Obviously, was out of shape, didn't care about the team. It was just really a lack of respect. And basketball, to be honest, is the only sport where you can get away with that bullshit. Hockey, football, baseball, they're benching you, suspending you without pay, but everybody's kind of walking on eggshells in the new NBA the last few years because there's just so much player empowerment. And I've always been a guy that's kind of talked on, I'd rather have the players have power than billionaire owners. That being said, there's just some kind of mutual respect you have to have. Same thing with me when I go to my job. If I don't feel like coming into work that day, I can't really just say I don't feel like coming in. You have to be sick. Mental health. There's all kinds of things you can use if they're applicable. But maybe one day you can take off stress or something like that. But after a while, you kind of you signed up for this job. You either A, resign from the job, or B, speak with your boss and see if you can kind of figure something out. These guys be paying millions of dollars. We know this. And the James Harden thing, like I said, I didn't really understand it because it was this totally different issue. Now with Andre Drummond, he opted into a contract. He signed it. He was able to get $30 million. He wasn't getting that on the open market. For the team to pull him out, I've seen hockey players in the NHL be pulled out at intermission, be told, get a change because we don't want you to get injured, you've been traded. What's the issue with this? Is it professional? At the end of the day, you're an asset, and this is a business. And if you don't like it, you can, retire. Because in nowhere else in the world are you going to be paid, in Draymond's case, $30-some million to, average 10 assists, sure, and, shoot 40%, 38% from the field and score 4 points. This is just part of the beast. It's the nature of the beast. And there's really not much that he can say because I'll tell you one thing, Adam Silver is not going to be happy about these comments, a guy who a lot of players love around the league. It's just not professional. It's not something you want to say. And I've talked with Igor about, when LeBron spoke out about the All-Star game and said, we need a break. And And I get it. It's been a long season. And in the All-Star game, what are you really playing? 10 minutes anyways. It's not the time to do it, but this league is driven by money. Same reason they did the bubble last year. There was the shootings that happened. Players didn't want to play. The show must go on, unfortunately. This is just, unless there's some type of war going on, literal war, the show's going to go on. And I think that a lot of these guys, they've really, and I gotta, take my hat off for them for bringing up a lot of social issues, standing up for a lot of things that they believe is, the right cause, and that's great. But at the end of the day, this is still a job. And Kyrie Irving, what he pulled off was not the best look either. And these guys can all go off and say, I don't want to say excuse, but I'm losing track of words here. Use the reason of mental health. And all of a sudden, everybody has to be quiet and kind of respect their space. But at one point, you have to say, like I've talked about before, this is a job. You need to come to work. Take off the time all you need, but sit out the season so that we can, move on. We'll bring in someone to replace you and then see how fast these guys want to claim that something's going on in their life. Maybe they still will, and that's fine if that is the case. But I just feel like with the players now, there's a lot of lack of truth going on with a lot of these guys. And, you do sign a contract. And with Bradley Beal, the thing that happened with him, he, took the contract that was given to him, big time deal. He was happy when Russell Westbrook came in. He's going off, give him credit, scoring 35, 40 points a night now, but you got to honor your contract. The team owes you nothing to trade you. You signed the deal. If they want to grant you your, trade, then they can do it. If not, they don't have to. So getting back to just the Draymond thing, I understand where they're coming from, and then touching back with the LeBron thing as well, when he was saying that he didn't want to play, and then Giannis, this is what I forgot to say, Giannis was like, we got to go with Big Bro on this one. A lot of guys are scared to speak their mind. So for that, I do have to give Draymond credit. I don't know if it's arrogance, pride, whatever it is, but he's never afraid to say what he has to say. And a lot of players might put their head down and say, oh yeah, like this. But I got to give Draymond credit because he feels a certain way and he's going to speak out about it. And a lot of people in general don't have the balls to say these things. So kudos to him for that. Do I agree with it? Not really, but I understand where he's coming from. But it's going to be interesting to see how these scenarios really play out because, as I've said, there's really nothing that he can do. And guys like James Harden, if he doesn't stay professional, he needs a cancer, he's not good for someone's locker room. We know all of those things. We know James Harden is not professional. We've seen him at strip joints in the middle of the season. Is he the only player to do that? No. Is he the only player to get drunk and party and maybe he's the last guy to get caught? But these are just some things that, and Jordan, Rodman, all these guys that people are probably saying, did they do it? Sure. But at the end of the day, they kept winning. And James Harden doesn't have that track record yet, at least. So until you win a championship, you might be able to get away with murder for a little bit. But right now he hasn't. And that's pretty much it on that. So I'll wrap this one up. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and we'll check in with you later. Probably this weekend. We'll check up on the Raptors road trip, how that's going, and as the trade winds blow, we'll see what trades are coming on. So once again, February 17, 2021. Joe Friday here for On the Block. You guys have a good one and take care.